Welcome to the Relationship Chronicles with Nina Westbrook. I'm here today with Sophia Roe, and I'm so excited to jump in and talk about all things culinary arts. And we like to kind of start off every episode with a this or that icebreaker.
Cute.
So it could be quick. I typically would say it could be quick answers, but again, I'm really excited to hear your feedback. So I'm going to go whatever you want to go with today.
Okay.
First question is night in with friends or girls' night out?
Night in. Yeah, I'm like an in all the way in. Like I'm not the I am not a going out gal. I don't think I ever have been. I want to stay in. The best food is going to be at my house. So everybody's going to want to come to my house anyway.
I love that. Okay, well, maybe one day.
Yeah,
one day
we'll plan it.
Where I get to come visit you in New York, and maybe you'll hopefully invite me.
Yeah. Oh my God. It's pretty open door. My house is pretty open.
Okay. So I feel like I already know the answer to this one. An intimate gathering or themed event?
Oh, I don't know. Because you can make both of those things in. And like a theme, like I would love to do like a disco theme thing. That'd be cute. Or like a like a color, like everything orange, you know? Or if like it was a challenge, everything blue, because there's not a lot of blue food in nature. I think I like both of those, but I guess intimate gathering can be themed. I think I like both. I'm going to go with both.
Okay, good. Love it. You're allowed.
Cool.
Okay. Okay, the power of purple or the joy of yellow?
Oh, power of purple. Easily. My favorite color. Most underrated color. I want everything purple. I'd have purple hair. I'm shocked that I've not done that yet.
It's such a regal, royal color.
I love it. I love it. My favorite color, everything purple. Purple bread, purple hair, purple eyeshadow, all of it.
And your jacket today, it's giving purple vibes. It looks like it could be a little navy, but it's questionable.
It's blue, but it wants to be purple desperately.
Yeah, I can feel that from your jacket. Okay, last one. Cooking on a cold day or outdoor summer barbecue?
Ooh, I love to cook when it's cold. Cooking. I think I like bread a lot, and you typically are using your oven to make bread. Not always though. So I don't know. I love an outdoor vibe, but you know what? Outdoor, it's kind of like, why are we doing any heat at all? You know what I mean? Like ceviche. Let's have oysters. Let's have cold salads. You know what I mean? It's minimal heat when it's hot outside. But I want to crank the heat up when it's cold. So I really would prefer to really throw down in the kitchen when it's like super cold out. I'm a New Yorker, so it gets cold here. You know what I mean? So
I know. I live in LA, and I still love, like, my favorite time is when it's cold and like rainy and like to just be inside and be snuggly and warm and make all the like delicious soups and hot chocolate and whatever.
Love it.
It's the best.
Love it. And it's like a hot meal is kind of cool when it's cold out. You know what I mean? You kind of have the coziness. Yeah, I love that.
Yeah, it adds that extra pizzazz to the whole day. Okay, so let's jump into some of these questions here so we can kind of get through. I have a feeling that I'm going to have a lot of questions for you.
That's good.
So first of all, I kind of want to start off with a get to know. You're obviously a James Beard award-winning chef, Emmy award-winning TV host. You have a huge following on social media. Can you please catch us up for those of us listening, and let us know how you kind of found your niche in the world of culinary arts and kind of what sparked your passion for diversity and inclusivity around food justice?
Oh, that's like a lot of questions.
I know.
Okay.
I want you to take it wherever you want it to go. What's your interest?
Okay. Well, I grew up in Florida mostly, moved around a lot. Both my parents were substance abusers, so I really kind of was with them, and then I was in foster care, and then I was with them, and then I was in foster care. So I grew up very much part of the foster care system, and because of that, very food insecure. And which I think food insecurity is really just a catch-all phrase for hunger. I really grew up experiencing a lot of hunger, and so did my mom. So I grew up around drug abuse, I grew up around substance abuse, and I grew up with a lot of hunger. So I didn't really have dreams of doing anything. I couldn't even think like that. I was very much more of like survive mentality, you know. I'm the oldest of 4, so I also have siblings. A lot of people don't know that, but so we all were really like grew up in that and were separated at points and together at points, and it was just really a lot. So I think once I graduated from high school, I went to college because I worked really hard in high school, knowing like if I have any shot of making it out of this situation, I've got to go to school. But I didn't have any focus. You know, I didn't have good role models. I had a shit boyfriend, had a few shit boyfriends. And then, so I dropped out of college and I really just needed a job. And there was this restaurant that was hiring, and it's not even around anymore. It was literally demolished, but it was this restaurant in Orlando, Florida that was hiring. And I told them I can use a knife. Just please hire me. I was lying. I definitely didn't know how to use a knife, but I was 19 years old and I just needed a job. And, you know, the thing is like I grew up with a lot of turmoil and chaos, but it really did make me pretty fearless. I'm not scared of when people tell me no. I'm not scared of failing. I'm not scared of fucking up at all because my expectation is that it will happen because it has. You know what I mean? So, which ended up kind of being a little bit of my superpower. But this restaurant hired me. I did learn how to use a knife. It's not like I ever dreamed I'd be on TV. I never saw anybody look like me on TV in the food world, right? It was like, it was Ina Garten's world. You know what I mean? I still very much think it is Ina Garten's world, but at the time,
we love her.
We love Ina. Listen, I'm happy to lose 2 Emmy nominations to Ina Garten. 2. I'm happy. It's fine. It's Ina Garten, you know? But I think, you know, as I started kind of moving in the food world, I really just was like, I think I could do this. I'm going to do this. I'm just going to be a cook. Like that was my aspiration. I'm just going to cook, which I love. I love being a cook. I'm still a cook. I went to culinary school. I dropped out. So I'm a 2-time college dropout. And I started doing private events. I was in Miami, Florida at this point, started doing private events. And then I got an opportunity to come to New York and be a private chef. I couldn't turn it down. I did that part-time. I worked in some cool restaurants part-time. And then I kind of just stayed doing that for a long time, about 5-6 years. I was like, I'll be a private chef. I'll also work in some restaurants. I was just happy to be a cook. And then I got really bad burnout. Trump had just become president. It was 2016. It was a very bizarre time. You know, racism is many things. It's horrible, right? Obviously. But I think in 2016, it was different. You know, racism was always around. It was around when I was a kid, growing up in the South for sure. But the way in which it felt like it was in my face, felt like it was in all of our faces once Trump became president. 2016 was a very, very challenging year for me. And so I quit food for a little while and kind of just floated around. And I ended up randomly getting this job at a makeup company, which made no sense for me. Which, girl, can I just tell you? First off, I just had a friend that was like, Sophia, just try something different. You're 27 years old. Just try something else. You've been working every day in food since you were literally 19 years old. So I work at this makeup company. I get a job there. I'm not qualified for this job at all. But, you know, this was a Snapchat time. This was when Instagram didn't have Instagram stories yet. It had just started implementing like a video format. You know what I mean? And I was showing my food on there. You know, it was 2016, 2015. And so I had a little bit of an Instagram following. I had 20,000, 30,000 followers or whatever, which at the time felt like something, you know, and they were like, Milk Makeup was the company. They wanted to expand their social media. I was like, okay, cool. They wanted to take the company vegan. Turns out talking about makeup is as easy as talking about food, really. It's cooking, just with different ingredients. That's all. Making makeup is just like making food.
I love that.
You know, when you really think about it. So I started working there and I was kind of like the social media face for Milk Makeup. And that's where I really learned how to that's where I really learned my love for art differently than just like, oh, it's food and taking a picture of food. It's like, no, like that's when I started to really learn like food can really be whatever I want. And like this classical training and like this way of like bread should look like this. That kind of went out the window. I was like, wait, why does it have to look like that? I can do whatever I want, you know? Once you get the protocol down and the process down, then it's just fun from there.
Hi, friends. I would love to talk to you about Peerspace. Peerspace has over 40,000 spaces available in cities around the world. I was able to work with them to bring my podcast dreams to life for all of my in-person recordings. I wanted to choose a space that I felt was open, airy, bright, and just overall felt good. In doing so, I was able to create a space where my guests could feel open, comfortable, and vulnerable when sharing about all the significant things happening in their lives. When it comes to you, make sure you choose the space that works best for you and that's going to help bring your project to life. Peerspace was kind enough to offer 15% off for all of our listeners on your next Peerspace booking when you use the link in the description by September 30th.
And so I did that for a little while, and then this woman sends me this email, Marissa Caputo. She's like, I want to be your manager. And I was like, what do you want to manage? I was so confused. I was like, okay. So I did what you shouldn't do. I signed some random contract. This woman is my manager. Okay. And, at that point, I had definitely got media trained, right? Working this job. I was on camera all the time. And, people's like, they're like, you're the only person in the world that teaches me how to do something, but also makes me laugh. And I'm like, that's cool. So that was in 2017. I signed with a manager. That was back when there was panels. Remember panels? Everybody was doing a panel. It was panel conversations.
I just did crazy. A panel. It's a whole thing.
It's a whole thing. Panels are a thing. So I got asked to do this Club Monaco panel, and I was on it with these iconic women. I remember it was Cindy Ramirez of Chill House. It was Alyssa Coscarelli. It was these really amazing women, and they were just tell your story. And I was like, you're going to pay me to tell my story? I just couldn't believe it. I was like, that is so bizarre, Wow. And that was kind of it, And then I became this girl who talked about their story and did cooking classes. And then, 2020 happened and we had to kind of pivot and go internal and everything became online. And it was really weird. And I remember thinking, wow, talk about food shortages. I've been this girl that's obsessed with supply chain and value chains for forever. And now everyone's talking about it. You can't get the food that you want. You can't get the things that you need, right? And so Vice came to me. They wanted to do a food media show. I said, we got to do a food news show because food is news, right? So it really just felt like we need to tell some food stories. We need anecdotal evidence of what we're all dealing with in our homes. And so that's when Counterspace was born. I had never made a TV show before, but I made a TV show in the hardest time ever to make a TV show during the pandemic. So we did 2 seasons now, just did the 2nd season last year. We shot it last year. And then I did another show. It was a show that Zoey Deschanel executive produced. Anyway, I did that show. I was gone for a month and a half in Hawaii and in a chocolate factory and doing all the things to help bring my 2 sort of sessions or segments of that show to life. And so, yeah, it's pretty wild. I never thought I'd be a girl that was making food on television, let alone talking about value chains and supply chains. It's unbelievable the places that food has enabled me to go. I never walk into a situation really believing that I deserve to be there. So I'm really good at faking it. And yeah, I don't know. I can't even remember your question. I'm sorry.
I feel like you answered the question perfectly, and I don't even know where to go from here either. There's so much to dive into, but something that was kind of recurring for me was this idea of faking it until you make it, going into positions not having the technical experience or not knowing how to do the skill. A lot of people shy away from that. I feel like a lot of the times we are too afraid to step outside of the box and present ourselves in a way that we feel we can be successful in any new career, whether we're changing and pivoting and going into a different field, whatever the case may be. So the fact that you had that fearless mentality from early on is probably, like you said, your armor.
Yeah.
And so I would love to hear more about that.
I mean, I think there's at the very beginning, I was faking it till I made it, right? And then I think it just becomes imposter syndrome, right? I've been a chef for 14 years. There's no reason I should walk into a room and feel like I don't belong there. I can't make sense of that. Right. I tell people that all the time. I'm on camera almost every day of my life. There's no reason that I should do a red carpet correspondence and not believe, and walk in there and believe I don't belong there. You
Right.
fake it till you make it. That's hard. But what's harder is the imposter syndrome,
Absolutely.
is knowing that you have the skill set and still not believing that you belong in there. And that's something that I deal with and battle with all the time. And I think I just also like am comfortable. It ends up becoming a thing you have to kind of do anyway. It's like imposter syndrome is like my compadre, It's like my a thing that I know I'm going to feel, right? So I can expect that she's going to come. It's like the girl that is mean to you at the party that she's going to be there. She's going to be there. And you've got to just know how to deal with her, You can't control her. You can't make her not come. I can't do much about that imposter syndrome. It's just there.
Right.
I feel like when you're talking about imposter syndrome and you think that like icons feel that, like Beyonce feels imposter syndrome. Like sheesh, if she's not safe, none of us are safe. So I just feel like it's okay to feel those things. It's fine to feel like you don't belong there, but you got to know that you do. And so, and that's the thing I always stick to. I randomly just did the red carpet correspondence at the James Beard Awards, and wow, it was my first time at the James Beard Restaurant and Chef Awards. And also my first time was I'm doing the red carpet correspondence, right? Just like my very first time on a red carpet was the Met Gala red carpet. I'd never been on a red carpet before. The Met Gala red carpet. That was my very first red carpet.
An introduction to red carpets.
Right.
That's the red carpet of red carpets.
Right. But it's funny because I was actually there to do a job, right? Like that was one of the years I was like a cook. I was the chef, one of the chefs. There was 10 of us that was meant to do the food that year. So it's like, it didn't make sense for me to have imposter syndrome because I was not only invited, but I was one of the very few people that literally had a job to do. Like I had to be there, So I think that what I tell people all the time is like, you have to trust your skills, right? Because your skills are going to be the thing that remind you that, no, you got to know that you belong in this room, right? Because your feelings aren't facts all the time.
They're fickle.
Their feelings are not always facts. But when you know your skill set, and I think that for me in a time of social media, I tell people when they ask me like, how can I do this? How can I do this? I'm like, you got to just know your skill. I grew up in a time where you'd be fired if you even thought of bringing a phone into a kitchen. I grew up in food in a time where I wasn't really worried about doing it for the camera. Like thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of egg whites later, your meringue will be perfect.
Ooh,
So I don't ever worry about that part, because I just know that part is good. And I think that's been the thing that I take with me everywhere. Like, Soph, you got this, what is it I say? If all I have to do is go in there and cook, I know I can do a good job. It's the other stuff that makes me nervous. It's like, I gotta look good. I gotta say the right thing. That stuff I'm still trying to figure out.
But what you're saying is so important because it's the preparation that goes into developing a skill is what's going to give you your confidence. And I love when you talk about having a relationship with your imposter syndrome. It's like navigating and learning how to navigate that relationship. But first of all, you have to know and understand your imposter syndrome, where it comes from.
Oh, yeah.
There's a lot of self-discovery work that goes into that. And just like anxiety or anything else, having a relationship with your anxiety and knowing that like it's your companion, like you said, is so important. It's going to help you manage the outcome. And the only thing that you have control over to help manage that imposter syndrome or that anxiety is your preparation and your skill set, being able to fall back on that.
Yes.
So
your protocol.
That's so important for so many people to know. And you don't have to be an expert going into any circumstances. And I think that we put a lot of pressure on ourselves sometimes to know everything when most people don't know everything and we're learning on the job. And like you said, you've been through enough experience. You put in the hours and effort and the work. So maybe we don't all step into the door looking like Sophia Roe, but we can look like ourselves and build whoever that's going to be.
Yeah, because I wasn't Sophia Roe. I wasn't Sophia Roe 10 years ago.
Well, yeah, of course you were.
Like, be where you're at. I think that it's fine to compare yourself to yourself, right? But I just don't think it's fair to believe that you're never going to feel imposter syndrome. You're never going to be scared. You can't, I just don't believe you can fake your way out of this stuff. I mean, when you grow up with such incredible, just incomprehensible trauma like me, it's never going to just disappear. I learned a long time ago, pretending like that shit didn't happen, that is not, maybe for some people, that's a protocol that works for them. That is not a protocol that works for me. You know, I'm a crier.
As a licensed therapist, I feel as though I would combat that idea and say that we have to work on our traumas. We have to kind of understand our traumas and what they are outside of us and know that our trauma is not who we are.
Bingo.
It's circumstances that have happened to us in our past. And we can learn how to view those circumstances and develop a new perspective and move forward knowing that we are not limited or we're not going to be held back by our experiences from the past. Hi, friends. I'm here to chat with you about Prime Video. Prime Video is entertainment for you, every you. There's the you that can light up the stage like Mrs. Maisel, but there's also the you that just wants a lazy brunch with your girls in Harlem. Prime Video is for the teenager falling in love you who turned pretty one summer, and the 30-something who knew she had it going on all along. For the dreamer in you who gets lost in the wheel of time, and the fan who dreams of playing in the WNBA. The strong in you who can best the boys like Starlight, and the not so strong you who can't get through an episode of Swarm without covering your eyes. We're here for the messy, the marvelous, and everything in between. World-changing, nap-taking, role-breaking you. Just as you are, Prime Video is entertainment for you, every you. Restrictions apply. See Amazon.com/Amazon Prime for details.
Having a relationship with your trauma doesn't have to be toxic. It's just understanding how you respond to trauma, understanding how, what's your tick, understanding what did you actually go through. I don't think that means making it so real that you feel it every day, but I think that means like, wow, am I letting trauma speak in this moment? Is how I'm reacting in a traumatic way? Am I projecting? It's just about understanding your body and how your mind thinks and who's making the decision. Is it the past? Is it a moment? Was it a trauma? And
having a plan even after that. How are we going to, now we've recognized this was our trigger.
Sure.
And when I'm triggered, what can I do to create a new cycle or to not fall back into an old cycle of behavior and being emotionally reactive to certain things that maybe weren't as significant, looking through a clear lens. So I think what you're saying is so spot on. And there's so much more that we can talk about that. I want to talk about the food and our relationship with food, because I feel like you can give us so much insight. There's this whole idea of eating well and exercising, and it's all a lot easier to do when we have the energy, when we're feeling happy, when we're feeling good about ourselves. And then there's this idea, and this is going to be another really full question. So
it's okay.
I love like your active listening face is amazing. Okay. So whereas like when we're sad and going through challenging times, it's harder. We don't have the energy to live well and eat well. And then there's the perpetuated idea of like comfort food. Can you speak to the more emotional relationship that we all share with the food that we eat?
I mean, I don't want to be like super reductive, but I feel like a lot of it really comes down to being rich or not. That's my first thing I think about, I think that we're a lot of us are really confused about wellness. Like, and I grew up very much in the wellness arena. Actually, I feel like wellness took a lot from me as a chef. Wellness made me feel like, it's just what was even asked of me. I really love plant-based food, and there is so much in that world, and there's so much in that sphere flavor-wise as a cook. I mean, I'm so deeply inspired by the plant-based world. I really am. So I don't want people to misunderstand that. But I do think that as a young, impressionable girl growing up in that period who happens to be a cook, suddenly I feel bad that I'm eating pasta, or I feel bad that I'm eating bread or cooking bread. Meanwhile, I'm a chef. Of course I'm cooking and eating bread and pasta and all that stuff, cheese and whatever, like it's literally my job. Clients will be like, I want mac and cheese for dinner. I am okay. You know what I mean? I guess when I think about wellness, my version of wellness is real simple, like the basics, food, air, water, movement, sunlight, purpose, community. I'm I'm very pulled back. All that other stuff is, it's sort of like self-optimization. It's nice, but I don't know that it's necessary. I love the infrared sauna, but I'm not going to die without it, So I think my goals with people is to really just get people to understand the value chain of it. When we talk about relationships to food, I want everybody to have a richer relationship with their food, a slower relationship with their food, a more peaceful relationship with their food, less guilt relationship with their food, a more regional relationship with their food. Go ahead and learn about what grows regionally. We talk about this and local that, but what does that mean? The same thing that grows in upstate New York does not grow in Pennsylvania, right? So just taking the time to get to know the space that you're in. I'm sitting in this room right now. I may take the time to get to know this chair and this table, and there's my bag. And I'm just asking that people maybe do the exact same thing with this thing that we need to survive,
Wow. The intentionality around your relationship with food and food in general.
Yeah, I'm very passionate about it.
I can see that in it. And that's exactly what we're receiving from you. Okay, so a little bit heavier on the topic, but how does the intersection of race, food insecurity, and systematic oppression contribute to unequal access to nutritious food in America, and particularly in the Black community?
Oh my gosh.
I know.
It's like if I have to like make it an image, it's almost just like being Black in America is like being born with a weight vest on. Like it's like you as a Black person have the weight vest on, and then there's a white guy right next to you, and you're running the same race, right? But they don't have the weight vest on, and you have had yours on since you were born, right? So you spent your whole life with this weight vest on. But then you're told you're actually running the same race fairly. And that's how I think of the system that we're in. It's not just about food. It's about access to, yes, of course, food, but access to education. It's about who actually benefits from the carceral system. To think that there are white men that benefit from Black people being incarcerated, that's real, And when I think about in relation to food, it's kind of like food is the easiest way to showcase that racism is still a thing, because there are a lot of people, I can't even believe I have the conversation. I really can't, I still have to have the conversation that racism still exists with some people. But the easiest way to do that is to start with food. And Michael Twitty talks about this really, really well in his book, The Cooking Gene. But sort of like, on your quest to figure out who you are, you have to be ready to find out some really yucky things. When we talk about origin stories with our food, right? We want our food to feel good. We want our stories to feel good, right? They're not good. They're really, really bad. And Padma says it best, Padma, she says that, the American pie, right? Like this like apple pie. Not one of those ingredients is even native to North America. Not one.
Wow.
Not one ingredient in apple pie is native to North America, right? When people talk about racism, they expect me to start with like policy and legislation. I'm like, no. This stuff goes way back to the very beginning. In fact, I feel like a big problem when we talk about racism within our food structures and food systems is that we're not going back far enough. We're just not. You're talking about colonizers that first came to this country that literally would have starved to death if not for indigenous people teaching them what to do with the food that was native to this land, which corn being most notable, right? So it's like, I think when we talk about where does racism fit in, I mean, it's at the beginning. It's at the very beginning. Because truthfully, when you really break it down, indigenous folks, without them, I don't even believe that colonizers would have really been able to come here and actually colonize this land the way that they did. And so I think I'm on a big mission for people to understand what is even native to this land. Like tomatoes are not native to North America. Like they're just, they're
Mhm.
not, you know what I mean? Like so many foods, so many, like almonds, things, you know, I'm thinking things that we really, really love, right? Rice, definitely native to North America, some varieties. Corn, definitely native here. But a lot of the really good stuff comes from Africa, right? A lot of the really good stuff comes from Asia, you know?
Coffee.
I mean, coffee, but even just the cooking styles, right? So another area of racism that I think about all the time is like who gets the credit for fine dining and who gets to say what fine dining is and what fine dining isn't.
Hi, friends. Let's talk about food, which is my favorite topic. My partner, Every Plate, is making life so much easier for me as a mom on the go. Between the grocery shopping and preparation, cooking for a family, particularly small kids, can be a lot. Every Plate saves me so much time and money while still providing satisfying meals that are easy to make. It's 25% less expensive than grocery shopping with no hidden fees. You're only paying for the pre-portioned ingredients you need. Plus, they're already in 6 easy steps and they offer 15-minute or less or oven-free meals, which means I can have kids help me out in the kitchen. Get started with Every Plate for just $1.49 per meal by going to everyplate.com/podcast and entering code 49 Nina Westbrook. That's everyplate.com/podcast and enter the code 49 Nina Westbrook. That's up to $110 value.
I feel like there's just so much racism within food. So when you have that conversation, yes, of course, from a legislation's perspective, yes, of course, from a bureaucratic's perspective, from a government perspective, but that's the stuff we already know about. I'm more interested in the conversations that we don't have, right? Who gets to make what, right?
Right, from the very beginning. And I think, like, with all of that said, how would you define food justice?
I mean, food justice there is an actual definition for food justice. And I feel like food justice as we know it here in America is very much a product of the Black Power movement. And sort of this idea of not just giving a person food, because that's not enough, right? It's the acknowledgement that there is an unfair situation going on to begin with, right? It's also an acknowledgement that you are going out of your way to not just give these people food, but the education in which to continue to have food, right? And so it's not just not having access to a grocery store. It's not having land. Because if you don't have land and you don't have a grocery store, then you get what you get, don't you? You know?
Right.
But that's the racism that we are very aware of already. We are very aware of a food swamp, of a food apartheid. I grew up in one. I live in one right now currently, right? And so I think that if once you understand the origin story, then you really start to see the full picture. Then you really are like, oh, wow, look at this community of Black folks. Look at this no grocery store. Look at this no access to land. How many generations has that been going on? You know? And then you're able to really, really see like, oh my gosh, now look at the no access to childcare. Now look at the maternal birth rate for Black women in America, right? Right. So it's just like, for me, I'm just like, how is this not, it's just like, we got it. I understand it so clearly. I'm very much in sort of a solution framework at this point, right? Like the horse is dead. It's so blatant to me that I'm like, let's talk solutions. Let's have some radical imagination right now because it's so blatant that this is a problem. And this has just been going on for so many generations. And the way trauma works, right? It sits in there. You're born, you're alive inside your grandma, you know? So whatever grandma went through, we went through also. Right. You know, so we really need to tackle this stuff. My relationship with our relationship with our food existed inside of our grandmother. What she was eating is what we were eating.
And the trauma and the stress that she was experiencing that was happening in her body is then passed down.
I mean, absolutely.
From generation to generation. And we're all trying to cope and fight and work through that trauma, especially as you mentioned with the maternal birth rate in Black women. I heard this really, really interesting fact idea from this very predominant physician at Cedars, and I'm blanking on her name, but I'm gonna Cynthia Mathis, I believe, Dr. Cynthia Mathis. And she was talking about like the stress test for Black women is going through the process of childbirth. And that's when you really learn how well or how healthy your body is going to respond.
Sure.
And so many of us do not respond well to that stress test, to that particular stress test. So that really struck a chord with me when you're talking about you're living within and inside of your grandmother before you're even here.
It's true.
And that goes back to like the cultural significance of food and how it contributes to fostering connections and strengthening our relationships and preserving our cultural identity within communities. Can you talk a little bit more about that idea?
I mean, food is so much more than just what you eat. It's so much more than just what you put in your mouth. I mean, you're eating when you're on your phone. You know, I'm eating when I'm in the subway. I'm taking it in. I'm taking all of it in. You know, I come from very much a broken home. I believe that community is a pillar of wellness, and that if you don't have it, that you're sick. We are humans. We are not meant to do this stuff alone. In fact, nothing on the planet. The planet is it can only really be its best self when it's working in conjunction and in symbiosis with everything else, right? We are just walking little Earths around, right? We're our own little planet. And so it is so important to share space. You know, biological diversity is how we continue as a species, right? That's how you don't have a healthy gut if you've only got one type of bacteria in there. Like you gotta, that's why everybody's a probiotic this, probiotic that. Eat lots of different types of foods. I mean, it's just very obvious. I feel like, you know, unfortunately, we do live in a time where we're very siloed. I mean, the pandemic did not help. Oh my God. That's
an understatement.
Right. It didn't help anything. But I think this idea of checking on your neighbor is very foreign. And I think the people that actually get it right, I think Black communities get it right. Spanish communities get it right. They take care of each other still. You know, I encourage people all the time, like, it's not weird to ask someone how they're doing, to knock on your neighbor's door. That's not bizarre. That is not a strange thing. It's okay, you know? And if they don't receive it, they don't receive it. But I think it's really great to live in a community where I am supported and I do know my neighbors. And, you know, I don't want to like judge a way that a certain type of person does a certain thing, but I do know for a fact that if you don't have community in your life, that you are sick, for certain.
Right. And that's how we build our community through vulnerability, and that's how we connect. We connect with others through our experiences, and you've done such an amazing job balancing and juggling, you know, how much of your life you want to put out into the world for all of your thousands and thousands of millions of, you know, followers across all of different social media platforms or avenues or whatever the case may be. Yeah. And then you also, I love you talk about having boundaries in that as well, and having to establish what is meaningful and what is good and going to help someone essentially if you share versus putting out too much information.
Oh, boundaries are so good.
How do you find a balance with that?
Boundaries are really important for me. You know, like the inside of my home. I don't share the inside of my home. Anytime you see where I'm at is my studio. I do not share the inside of my home. That's a hard boundary for me. That's a sacred place for me, my partner, and his son. And that's just it. That's my boundary, you know? I do not share. I don't share ever from a place of trauma. So like if I'm having a freak out moment, in that moment, I'm not sharing in that moment. I might share after. And I definitely used to do that on social, but I found that to be not helpful, not healthy for me, and maybe just kind of made it worse. Somebody might say like, why are you sharing this? Or you should have done this, or you should have done that. And that never really seemed to be helpful. I always go about things from a very trauma-informed, welfare-informed place. So even when something chaotic does happen to me, I'm kind of like, you know, I remember when I used to be that angry. I remember when I was a hot mess. I remember when I was toxic, right? Like I'm never, like I get it. You know, when someone says some horrible shit to me, I'm like, must be so hard to be so mad. You know, I remember how to be, you know, lead with love. I'm not going to, you know, and it's like, Yeah, sometimes they're very egregious stuff, but my boundaries are with my family. I don't play around with my family. I don't play around with people talking about my family, people making comments. Like that's like for me, my hard line. I'll talk about my own trauma and my own life, my own experiences, my mom, my trauma there, but we're not talking about my family.
Hi, friends. I want to talk to you about my new favorite product, Lumi. It is a full body deodorant. I like to use it when I'm planning to go somewhere that I know I'm going to be running around with the kids. Number one, it's going to be hot. We're not going to be stopping, or we're going to be outside all day. And I know that there's going to be a lot of friction, a lot of heat, a lot of sweating and running around. So the thing about Lumi that surprised me most was that it includes an ingredient called mandelic acid, which stops odor before it even starts. The other thing that is important to know is that it has a 72-hour odor control. Lumi Starter Pack is perfect for new customers. It comes with a solid stick deodorant, cream tube deodorant, 2 free products of your choice, like the mini body wash and deodorant wipes, and free shipping. As a special offer for my listeners, new customers get $5 off your Lumi Starter Pack with code Nina Westbrook at LumiDeodorant.com. That equates to over 40% off your starter pack when you visit LumiDeodorant.com and use code Nina Westbrook. I feel like we have so much in common and connect on so many different topics, because I think the same way. My personal space is like off limits, and my family is off limits.
Yep, sorry.
That's when you will catch me clapping back.
Oh, yes.
Whenever it has to do with my family or out of line. My husband's a public figure, so people talk about him daily, I'm sure. But there's a context in which it's appropriate, and there's a context in which it's not. So
absolutely.
Family hard nose for both Sophia and I, just for all of you listening. Yes. And
another hard no is my body. My body. That's a very hard no. We do not discuss
that should be
my
a
body.
Hard no. And just from a general sense, these should be hard no's for everyone.
Yes.
Like, let's talk about this idea of social media and the fact that people feel it's okay to comment on any of these things.
Yeah.
It really is. We all have to have and maintain our own boundaries.
Yes.
And, so
yes.
Hard no's for everyone.
Yes.
This has been really amazing. I kind of want to wrap things up with you, because I feel like we could talk for 2 hours, but I'm sure you have things to do. For those of us who are listening and are interested in supporting you in your work, what are some small steps that we can take in our everyday lives to make a difference? I know you were talking about really like sitting with our food and thinking about our food and enjoying our food and being more intentional about our food. Is there anything else?
Oh my gosh, yes. You can get to know the land that you sit on as we speak. What land, whose land are you on, right? Learn, get some history going. There is an indigenous tribe that at one point owned that piece of land that you're on. And I really could get emotional when I think about it, because you probably don't know, and it's not your fault, And there's so much anecdotal evidence for it now, and we're seeing it. I was at the James Beard Awards, and, I think it was the very first Indigenous woman ever to win a James Beard Award. She is the second person total, but the very first woman. The first was Sean Sherman, who's done so much in terms of education. Like, whose land are we on? What actually grows here, right? Who was the land that you're on now? Who was it stolen from, right?
Right.
And I think once we do that, I think then we can really have a deeper understanding to our own communities, right? It's, again, I'm one of those that's like, go backwards to go forwards. So once you understand that, then you can really look at, wow, do I have any farms in my area? Who owns the farms in my area? What is local in my area, right? What kind of food grows in my area? Maybe it's something I've never eaten before, maybe heard of before, but could be really yummy, And I think it's also like, separate from that, I think it's just understanding the reality of food insecurity. I think that's something that I hear all the time is like this choice, like, why do people eat that, right? Like, why not eat healthier, right? That's that flippant, being so flippant about wellness, being so flippant about welfare. It's just not an option. If you're starving and the only thing you can afford is the dollar menu from McDonald's, you're going to eat that, man. That's what you're going to eat, right? I really would just, I'd like some respect as someone who grew up so food insecure. I would like for people to actually take a greater understanding to not only how these systems work, but how they were designed, right? Like take some time to really consider your history and take some time to really consider how do you want to positively contribute to the world that we live in, right? And I really mean that. Write the shit down. We all want to be good people. I don't believe you if you don't write it down. I really don't. Because that I could tell you right now, Nina, donate to this. No, it's like, yeah, donate. But also like, you're just going to donate and then you're not going to think about it. You're going to think you did your thing. No, learn.
The idea and the current theme, I feel like in this conversation with you today has been that nothing is what it seems. Like, you have to be open and be thoughtful about everything and the history behind it. Everything that you see has a story. And an origin story.
I just feel like, if you're going to be someone who says you care about hunger, right, then you need to understand the demographics that are suffering from hunger. And that's really it. That's just the mic drop. I don't want to hear you say you care about food insecurity, or you care about food swamps, or you care about the climate, or you care about food distribution, or you care about value chains. If you do not understand the people, the communities, the anecdotal evidence, right? There's stories here. These are not just like numbers. Like, they're human beings. They have lives. They have parents. They have moms, right? If you do not understand who is affected by those things, right? Even in our minds, when I say to you, Nina, a pilot, someone who's flying your plane, 99% of people are not going to imagine a Black woman, right? They're not going to imagine a Black woman flying a plane. Why is that? It's the same with nonprofit leaders. When I say the leader of a nonprofit, you're probably not thinking of a hood guy on the south side of Chicago. Little do people know that that there are quite a few hood guys. Dion Davis is one of them. Love you, Dion, who is doing so much to feed his community, right? It's like reimagine leaders. Reimagine who can fix a problem, right?
I was going to say, and what does it even mean? To be a leader.
Just reimagine the role entirely, right? That's why I say radical imagination. It is going to take radical imagination to fix these problems, because these problems are so deep, they're so grave, they're so intense. So the best piece of advice I can give is not just to say that you care about a community, but it's get to know it, right? If your advocacy is not equitable, right? If it is really not considering who is suffering, what these communities are that are suffering, then it's just not good enough. And then I don't believe you, It's not about checking a box. It's about really getting in there. And that's how you build the humanity. And that's how you build the desire to learn and grow and understand. And not from like a weird saviorism place. It's not working. It's not working to do something for a community, because rest assured, the Black community, the Spanish community, these Asian communities, they've been doing it for themselves for forever, right? It's about understanding the privilege that you have, right? And you were born with, right? And the privileges that others don't have and they weren't born with, and really just looking like, how can I use my privilege, right? Instead of moving into a Black community and opening up a restaurant, maybe consider that there are Black people in their own communities that would like to open up their own restaurants, and maybe consider investment, right?
Or restaurants that are already there.
Love it. Even better. But I do also believe in entrepreneurship, and I do believe that there are plenty of Black folks that are dying to open up their own businesses in their own neighborhoods. Instead of moving into that neighborhood because it's cheaper to do so, maybe stay out of it and just consider who's in need and supporting the neighborhood. But if you are also someone who has some excess fiscal, right, assets and would like to support a community, think outside the box on ways to do that. Don't just make one phone call and be one and done with it. Advocacy is a lifelong thing. Community is something you do for life. You don't just eat one salad, right? We talked about it: food, air, water, movement, sunlight, purpose, right? Community. You can't just get some sun one day and then it's over. These are things you continually need to do in order to be well. You need to continue that process. And if you're not doing that, then you probably don't feel well. Community is the same exact thing.
Wow. Beautiful.
Cute.
Thank you so much. I feel like that was a mic drop moment. I'm happy.
I'm happy if you're happy. I feel great.
Okay, well, where can we follow you and find you?
So you can follow my Instagram, Sophia_Roe. You got to put the underscore in there because there is another Sophia Roe. And then, or you can also follow Apartment Miso. That's my studio. Apartment Miso in Brooklyn. I have some pop-ups coming up this summer that are open to the public that I'm very excited about. So thrilled. So yeah, you could just check out my Instagram. You can watch my show. My show is called Counterspace. You can watch it on Tastemade or on Hulu. It's a great show. I love it. And then there's another show that I did with Zoey Deschanel. It's called What Am I Eating? Hello. And I'm on the chocolate and the fats and oils episode. So if you've ever wondered about what are good oils to cook with, what the power of grapeseed oil, what a lot of chefs cook with, it's a really, really, really great episode. I'm really kind of like all over the place.
That's okay. We love it. The more of you that we can take in, the better for the rest of us. So we love it. Thank you so much for being with us.
Oh, this is so great, Nina. Thank you so much.
Nice to meet you.
Oh, you too.